It was a long-planned day of enjoyment. My friend Liz and I spend a lot of time together. Liz and I had already been to evening entertainment and even a couple of theme parties, but we had never gotten around to realizing our long-thought-out idea of spending the whole day together from morning to night. And now, finally, this day has come. We planned it. We had rented a small secluded cottage outside the city for a couple of weeks before, and now it was finally time to go to it. After my morning hygiene routine, I put on my fidelity belt. Liz fastened the lock, put the key in her pocket, and pointed her finger down. Here we go. I understood, immediately got on all fours, kissed the top of her foot, and looked up, waiting for further instructions. Liz playfully looked me up and down and said, "Let's get ready. It's already time to move out." Liz is a short girl, just under 160, with a nice fullness. I like a girl's fullness. I guess you could even say overweight with a pear shape. Liz had voluminous hips, wide butt, narrow shoulders, small breasts for a girl of this size, which I always liked, because her breasts were perky and firm, which is not usually the case with full girls. In general, her body broke stereotypes about lush women, because even her voluminous thighs and buttocks were firm and completely free of cellulite, despite the fact that she, like me at that time, was about 30. However, it was hard to tell her age from her sweet round face, which, judging by old photos, did not change over time. It was hard to tell her age. This type of face is called a baby face. Her straight red loose hair just above her shoulders suited her very well. Her hair was very pleasant to the touch, and it was a special kind of pleasure to bump her nose into it during a hug. Liz never wore perfume, so her hair smelled of woman and nothing else. But I wasn't likely to feel that pleasure tonight. The plans were very different, and they began with the current scene. I would have to stand on the floor on all fours in front of a petite girl dressed in a house robe and touch the toes of her foot with my lips. I have always been particularly turned on by the aesthetics of the physically strong giving themselves over to the control of the physically weak. Today, I have yet to experience the amazing feelings far more than once. So we got dressed, grabbed our gear and groceries, and headed to the car. It was a short drive, no more than half an hour. Liz and I didn't talk much on the way because that was the deal today. I was a servant, a driver, a henchman, a thing, a slave, but not her boyfriend. Liz was on her phone, and I was just driving. The excitement of the wait made it seem like a long drive, but in fact it was about 25 minutes later when we arrived at the cottage. I got out of the car, walked around it, opened the passenger door, and bowed to Liz so that she could get out of the car more comfortably. Liz looked at me approvingly and got out. I opened the gate with the key I'd borrowed from the landlord yesterday, let Liz into the yard, and went back to the car to get my things. The house was tall, and there were no large buildings around it. There was no need to be afraid of prying eyes. Liz sat down on the couch, and I set my bag beside her, then opened the door to the house and returned to my hostess. "Hi, undress." I realized we were going to be outside for a while. Liz liked to play mistress and doggy with me sometimes. Not that such a game was on my list of major fetishes, but I certainly enjoyed seeing Liz enjoy it as well. I stripped down to my underwear and knelt in front of my mistress. She opened her bag, took out the dog collar I had bought at the pet store a long time ago, and unbuttoned it. I immediately stretched forward and craned my neck to make her more comfortable. Liz wrapped the rough leather band around my neck and buckled it. The rough leather felt good against my neck. I stayed in the same position waiting for the leash, but Mistress pushed me away with a light pressure on the top of my head. I realized there would be movement games first and immediately got on all fours and scooted in place to be doggy-like. Liz had always found this very amusing. She laughed uproariously now too and scratched me with her delicate fingers at the base of my jaw. Right in front of the garden sofa was the recently watered lawn. It was onto this that the small ball that the landlady had thoughtfully thrown into our bag yesterday flew. To Liz's laughter, I scrambled on all fours onto the wet lawn, grabbed the ball with my teeth, brought it back, rubbed my cheek against my mistress's outstretched hand, and then put the ball in it. We did the same thing 3 or 4 more times, and I got into character and galloped on 4 legs across the wet grass. It was summer, so it was hot outside and the cold water on the grass felt really nice. It was physically challenging to run like that, so I was out of breath, and the heavy breathing with my tongue on my shoulder didn't need any more urging. Liz laughed, beckoned me over to her and pulled out the leash. I craned my neck and she fastened the metal carabiner to the ring on my collar. For a while we walked around the yard. She softly treaded on the lawn, and I shuffled along on 4 legs and every now and then rubbed my face or at that moment my muzzle against her hand or against her thigh through the light loose skirt. Sometimes my mistress stopped and I covered her ankles with kisses, with my nose supporting the hem of her long skirt upwards. Sometimes she scratched me on her hair, neck, or behind her ears. The way she looked at me tenderly at these moments gave me unprecedented pleasure. We went into the house and Liz took off my collar and sent me into the shower to wash off the sweat and grass and soil that was on my palms, feet, and knees. When I came out, she was sitting in a chair with a soft faux fur rug on the floor in front of her. Which seat I should take was quite obvious. The fur of the mat felt very nice against my freshly washed skin as I lay down in a yogic child's pose in front of Liz and began to gently kiss her feet. I caressed her ankles and calves with my hands and tongue, gently moving higher and higher. Liz threw her skirt up over her stomach. Her panties were no longer on. When I moved to the inside of her thighs, Lena leaned back in the chair and closed her eyes. I knew she liked it that way, so I stayed there for a long time, wrapping my arms around her thighs from below so that my hands were around her buttocks and waist. I kissed her thighs, running my tongue over them, rubbing my face against them. Sometimes Liz would squeeze her legs so that my head was between them and my ears were covered by the inside of her thighs. In those seconds I closed my eyes and fell completely into the tactile sensations. Then I moved higher. She tensed up first, then relaxed. We were enjoying each other. I pulled my face away briefly and met Liz's eyes. I always loved looking at her at times like this to see that blissful and always playful look from above. We were glad that we had changed the scenery, rented this cottage and spent time in the country. We cooked a delicious dinner, which we quickly ate, because we were hungry, pleasuring each other. Now, once again we need to think of another program, somewhere else to go. And what do you do for your variety, so that life is not boring?